Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now here on the New River Network and the Boys College Football. Greg Christ, along with Mr. Frank Fear. Frank, welcome in.
Good to see you, Greg. You've got your Cleveland Browns T-shirt on. I've got my Rutgers. I got to tell you a little story. I said some bad things about Rutgers athletics last week. I'm really sorry about that. They were truthful, but I'm sorry. But on Sunday night, a woman came to my door, gave me a card. It said Scarlet Knight, and she gave me a package, and she said, "Wear this or else." And so for 1 week only, it's Rutgers. I'd sing the fight song, but I just learned they don't have one. So I don't know.
Well, anyway. we know where your allegiance is. So
that you got it. See, there's the flag. The flag's back there.
That's right. That's a good looking shirt. I told you before the show. Nice peace offering.
That's very good.
Just don't say anything bad about Pitt.
No.
Of course, that was my ugly sweater, Christmas sweater. I had a party up in Morgantown, the ugly sweater thing, a fundraiser. I wore a Pitt sweater. That was my ugly sweater.
I remember that. That's great.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on, Frank, and another great guest tonight. We've got what I consider the recruiting guru for West Virginia, Dave Gorby, with us. That'll be fun to talk to Dave and get updated on all the recruits and everything that's going on. And he really locks in on that stuff and knows it. And it'll be fun to talk to him about it.
Well, Dave is exceptionally knowledgeable, very close to it, and he's one of our go-to guys when we think about WVU football, and it'll be great to get his perspective. And it was good to see Coach Rodriguez back for this weekly show, and that was very informative. We'll talk about that. And, of course, we're still trying to recover from Monday night's game against the women's basketball game against Kentucky that Darren was at. Got tickets and was there, which is great.
It was a tough way to finish up, but good ball game, and we fought back, and we did fell behind early, and then when you fall behind like that many points, and you fight to come back, it takes a lot of energy, and then you kind of run down. But they had a shot at the end to win it, and just couldn't quite pull it off. And you and I talked about maybe what the strategy was there for West Virginia. Since there was only 0.2 seconds left, we thought both of us agreed that what Coach Hodges was attempting to get them to do and to make happen was to draw a foul. And we kind of felt like he drew the foul and just didn't call it. And like I told you, I definitely thought it was a foul, but I would have been shocked had they called it in that situation. And I know everybody says it doesn't matter the situation, it's a foul, it's a foul. I agree 100%. But I also know how these officials are, and that is on a game-deciding call like that, they're very hesitant to call it.
Yeah. Hey, Darren, why don't you could you feel comfortable coming in? You were there. You can replace my face if you want to and give your thoughts about that game, and particularly how it ended. Okay. Darren's going to come in, and we've got we've got some video. Actually, we stole it from ESPN, modified it, and West Virginia won that game 85. Got 85 points in the video that I have that we're going to be showing. Seriously, though, I edited it so we can see in slow motion that last play, and it's quite interesting. Darren, do you want to come in now or play the video first? Okay, so we're going to show the video. It's not that long, and it shows the final 0.2 seconds 3 times, one in real time, and then twice in different slow motions. And so you can see it. And this is in HD, so it should be pretty good quality. And there's no voice. We can't do that. So, Greg, you're free to comment over. Here it is right here.
Yeah, I think.
Here's the shot. What a great play she had. The step back that just missed.
Yep. Yeah, they set up a nice play. They did some action under the basket there to make it look as if.
And this is a replay just so you can see it again. It really is a great basketball play.
Yep.
Yeah,
they ran action down low to make it look like they were going to try to work it down, and then she come off a screen and was wide open.
Here it is. And you really can't tell in real time, but you do see the Kentucky player in the back, and you see Harrison get off. Now, this is in slow motion. Now, watch this. They could call a foul right here on West Virginia. They didn't. And then, look, 3 Kentucky players, and Harrison is hit, and she falls to the ground. And you and I talked after the game. There was no reason for Harrison to be underneath other than to draw the foul. Now, we're going to see it again, also in slow motion. And it's even slower now. And it's done. She hits the ground before the ball is thrown in. She's on the ground, and she was hit. And I think it was that Strack woman who was the one who delivered the blow.
There we are, Frank.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think, Darren?
Well, that was a tough way to end the game, Frank. And I mean, yeah. First of all, the Mountaineers should have never been in that position to have to really play behind the entire game. I feel like compared to watching them on Saturday against Miami of Ohio, they really came out flat in the first half of the game, especially in the first quarter. So there's a lot of missed shots. I really think the length of Kentucky really bothered the Mountaineers initially. They couldn't really respond to the length because I got to watch Kentucky play not only Monday, but against James Madison Saturday. And I would say the average height of the starting 5 is 6'4" to 6'5" for the Kentucky Wildcats. And that's really hard to overcome because the Mountaineers, especially if you've seen them in person, they have a short roster. I mean, Harrison is 5'6". So her game plan is a lot of going up the out in layups. And when you have a 6'4", 6'5" player on each side of the basket, that made it very difficult. So they kind of had to adapt. Coach Kellogg kind of had to adapt in the second half and did really well adapting. But I feel like they played behind the entire game, and that contributed to Kentucky defense because that was probably one of the tallest collegiate teams I've ever seen in person. So hats off on the recruiting aspect for the Kentucky Wildcats. They do have a legitimate shot to make a run in the tournament. Obviously, they're in the Sweet 16 now, but very similar team to TCU. TCU had a very length. Yeah, as far as their length, they had a very tall team in the Big 12 tournament. Obviously, beat the Mountaineers twice in the regular season, but yeah, they just gave the Mountaineers fits. They didn't have an answer for the defensive end from Kentucky. So, but going back to the game and the atmosphere there in Morgantown, that did set the Coliseum record on Saturday. I think it was 13,504 was the total count. That set the WVU record and also the collegiate record in the state of West Virginia for a women's athletic event. So that was great for the program. It was the largest crowd many of those women had ever played in front of, and they had definitely had the support from Mountaineer Nation. So they cheered them on from the first whistle to when they won the game, obviously on Saturday. Wish would have turned out differently on Monday evening, but as I mentioned, it was just a much different team they played on Monday compared to the Miami of Ohio team on Saturday. So best of luck to Kentucky Wildcats. They do have a chance to make a run coming up. But yeah, next year they should have a returning team that'll be just as good. And regardless of winning Monday, they do have a good recruiter up there in Mark Kellogg. So he is bringing quality players consistently into Morgantown, because going back in the past decade, they've had a very consistent team year in, year out, in competing in the Big 12 and making the NCAA tournament. So if we can just transfer that over to the men's side, that would be great. But what Coach Kellogg's done up there in Morgantown here in the last couple of years is very very good for the state of West Virginia and West Virginia University. So bringing those quality players in. But great atmosphere. First NCAA tournament game in Morgantown for the women's team since 1992. So hopefully they can pull it off and do it again next year and host first and second round game.
Boy, well stated.
Frank, follow up here on what Darren said. The one of those players, if you remember, I think the big blonde-headed girl for Kentucky, I can't remember her name, Slack or Stack maybe. She was at Virginia Tech and followed the coach there to Kentucky, and they were in Virginia Tech. They were in the Final Four with her. So, not only tall, but a very experienced player as well, and a good player. And also, I agree that this is going to help the program. If you're a young lady out there, you're going to play college basketball. When you saw the atmosphere up there Saturday and Monday, that has to be attractive. Now, and nobody has to know that don't happen every single game, but that crowd and that atmosphere is not going to hurt. That's for daggone sure. Mm-hmm. And the size of Kentucky was just too much for them. I mean, it's hard to get any inside game established, and our shots weren't falling first half. And the second half, once the outside shots started falling, then we got right back in the game, and you just feel like if we'd have shot halfway decent in the first half, that we could have won that thing going away. But if a frog had pockets, he'd carry rocks. It'd keep stakes off of him. So there you go.
Very good. The reason I'm looking down here is that we have, as you know, we simulcast, and several people are commenting on the Voice of College Football stream. We appreciate that. Timothy Green is on there. We appreciate Timothy every week. Leona Lewis is on there. And Leo Cole. Leo Cole asked a question about the men's team. And the answer, Leo, is yes. There is a great player from Yale University. I saw him play a number of times on television this year. Yale won the regular season. They lost the Ivy Championship to Penn. I've written about that in my blogs, my articles on the sports column. But I want to make sure I get his name right because he's a 6'6", great defensive player, and his name is Isaac Seliskar, 6'6", sophomore, averaged 13.2 points, 6.6 rebounds a game, and he is he would. I think this is true. I hope it's true that he won the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year. I think it was Isaac. I know that one of the players on Yale, they had the Player of the Year, a different player who was a senior. But that would be a great get for West Virginia. It's always a gamble with a mid-major player, but Yale's well coached. Obviously, he's a smart kid. So Hodge is going after him aggressively. Let's see if we can get him.
Yeah, it would be a good get, and he. That's one thing I like about him is that, he's going after maybe people that nobody expected us to get, or nobody else thought about getting. This guy, he's a good player. Like I said, I watched him play a couple of games. I got to see him in their tournament, and he's a pretty solid player. And like you said, the intelligence level obviously is going to be high. And that you could never have enough of that on your team, and that's encouraging. But yeah, he'll fit right into this system if he likes to play defense.
I told you I was going to ask this question. Well, one more question until before we shift. Dave's in the background, ready to talk about Mountaineer football. But a colleague and friend of yours, Jared Calhoun. Who is in the Huggins tree, done a great job everywhere he's been. Great run he had at at Utah State. He has been named the new coach at Cincinnati. Your thoughts about Jared and his being hired by the Bearcats?
Well, like you said, he's a proven winner. He's won everywhere he's been. He started off at Fairmont, took those guys to the national championship in just a few years. From there, he went to Youngstown State. They won the conference, I think, back-to-back years, first time maybe in their history, and went from like a 10-win season to a 22-win season in a couple of years, and then out to Utah State, back-to-back NCAA tournament bids, and 23, 24-win season this year, and was competitive with the big boys. Knocked off Villanova in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and then lost a tough one in the second round, I think, to Arizona, number one seed, and it was a close game all the way through. So, yeah, Jared is Jared's a winner, and he does a great job. He's a great coach, and Sydney worked for him for a while at Fairmont, and he's just a basketball guru. He just knows the game so well, and he's gotten better. I think just watching him, myself, he's gotten better and better and better as he's gone on, and I think looking back on it, no knock on anybody that's there now. It was a good opportunity for West Virginia to grab him, and we didn't get him. And I think, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing that, that Huggins tree probably hurt him in this instance with WVU. And I think that's a shame because I think he's proven what he can do. He's a proven winner. And, the scary thing is now being the Big 12 going against us, and that will always worries you because he does such a great job. And I can't wait till he gets started. I'm anxious to see what he does with Cincinnati. I've already talked to him and, wished him luck and told him I knew that, based on what he's done in the past, this one shouldn't be any different. He should be able to win. He'll have resources and the backing. Another thing for him and his family, he's from that area. He's from the Ohio area. Played at, I think, Cleveland State, maybe may play at Villanova, maybe from Cleveland, I think is the way it is. But he's back home, which I think is, important for him and his family. So that's a good thing as well. So I'm happy as heck for him. I can't wait to see him get going, except against us.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, it's, we've got the Las Vegas tournament coming up next Thursday.
Yep.
So we'll be able to we'll talk more next Wednesday night, the 1st, about the upcoming game against Stanford. That'll be interesting as the Mountaineers play for really a $500,000 paycheck.
Yeah.
The players are,
Yeah.
because that goes to the winning club if they can win 3 games, I guess, 8 teams. Yeah. So
and that can all be used for Neil.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So it's exciting. But
I just thought Monday was my last day of having my stomach turned over, and then I remembered we play again next week with the men's team. I was like, got to suffer again here.
Yeah, thank God.
Because I suffer, win or lose, right. I suffer.
Yeah, but we got to the round of 32, and we hosted, and the baseball team. We'll talk about this after Dave is doing great. Won last night against Marshall, 1 hitter, 3-1. That was just great if you had a chance to watch it. But we'll talk about the baseball team later. But let's bring in our buddy Dave Gorby to talk Mountaineer football.
All right. There he is. Dave Gorby. Go on, Gorb. Long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a good minute, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. I guess you've been doing your research and studying and watching the Mountaineers in this recruiting cycle. And I'm not going to ask a ton of questions right now, but I'm just going to let you take off with it. Tell us what you know, what we got coming in, who looks like bright spots, that sort of thing. and the needs that's been filled and that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to let you roll with it until you get out a win, and then we'll take back over.
Well, I mean, we can. If you have any questions, we can definitely talk about it. But you know, I think the good thing about these transfers that we got in this year compared to last year, where Rich kind of came in late, is, and he kind of stated yesterday, there's only about 12 or so kids or guys that's not in that locker room right now, that's not in that weight program, that's not practicing with them. He has majority of the team for this spring practice that he really didn't have last year. So I think that's definitely a big key. But I think everybody's got to talk about quarterback, and obviously that's always a big discussion. But I think, did we overspend on getting offensive linemen? And after watching last year's team, I think the answer is no, because I think that's the key the key thing on is got what makes this team go.
Yeah, we were kind of the offensive line was kind of, I guess, was kind of bankrupt on us. They didn't perform. They got better as the year went on. He tried so many different combinations trying to find people, and that was frustrating to watch. And but they did get a little bit better as the season went on. And I'm like you, I think putting a little bit of money into that area, that to me is key. I mean, if you're going to have a running game, passing game, you got to have a line. I mean, we could see that. We had some of the best running backs in the country, but we couldn't do anything because we didn't have time to get off on it.
And you think about our running back room got banged up last year.
Yeah. Oh, tore apart.
So obviously that's a little key question. He brought in Cam Cook, the nation's leading rusher from last year from Jack State. He didn't have him, but he's played Power 5 football at TCU before. But the rest of that room is younger guys. There's a JUCO guy in there, and then the others are freshmen. So that's definitely going to be a key room. But running back has never been a problem with the Rich Rod offense. But going back to the offensive line, obviously I think the big thing is he brought in the guy that knows how to teach zone blocking. Bringing in Rick Trickett. And I know people are going to say, well, he's 80 years old, but I think it's a key thing. It's on the win now mentality. It's not like we're building something for 5 years from now. Like we got to do this right now. But and Rick talked yesterday. He talked about he thought they were ahead of schedule, and I think that's having older guys in that room, even though he hasn't been around all of them that long. But he talked about obviously 2 of them are ahead of the others, and that's the 2 transfers that he brought in from Jack State with him that was all conference players. And then, I thought it was key that, the 2 linemen that you really didn't complain about last year on no line for Rich Rod didn't leave, Livingston and Nick Cray. So, but the thing is, Rich really ain't saying a lot. He's doing coach talk on his press conferences, so we really won't know a depth chart until probably August. So, and then the other, we'll go back to quarterback. Is Scotty Fox going to be the guy, or is the Hawkins guy that they brought in from Oklahoma going to be the guy? I think that's going to be a good battle, and just like Rich Rod, he ain't going to say anything until probably a few days before we open the season.
Yeah. What about the receiving core? I know, last year we struggled in that area a little bit, and definitely need some help there.
Yeah. So he's talking about. He thought Jaden Bray, the guy that Neil Brown brought in from Oklahoma State, was probably going to be their top guy last year, and unfortunately he got hurt. It was either game 1 or game 2
second game
year, and he's back, so he's looking for him to be kind of that leader. And then he's brought in some transfer receivers. He brought in Teron Francis, which was a big recruit from Louisiana that went to LSU last year. He's talked about how tough and physical that kid is. So you got to look from him. And then the two other guys is DJ Epps from Troy. And then I'm trying to think of his last name. His first name is Prince. He came from USC. He didn't really play. He got hurt at USC. He didn't play a lot, but he was on that Boise State team that had Alshon Jenti as the running back. And he was their top guy. That's kind of why he went to USC. So that's going to be another area because basically they're all new faces in that room. Another thing he talked about yesterday was still playing a lot of 12 personnel. And for the people that don't know that's one running back and two tight ends. So obviously it's Rich Rod. He's always going to talk about the running game, and obviously 12 personnel helps that. He talked about the tight end specifically, and he brought in a few tight ends just for that. One tight end, Cam Ball, is about 6'8", about 270 pounds. So I definitely looked at for an area that he wants to improve on too.
Offensively, sounds like he's put a lot of the pieces together offensively that we're in need of for sure. The offensive line, receivers, like you said, running backs. I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen because they're not, but we have never seemed to have a problem finding good running backs, and a lot of that is attributed to the offensive line, I think. But it sounds like he's addressing the needs that we have, across the line. From end to end, it sounds like he's addressed all those needs. Frank, you want to jump in with a question? I don't want to take all the time.
Oh, good. Enjoying the conversation. One of the things that struck me, Dave, from yesterday's press conference, that was that my head shot back, because my experience in terms of my observation watching Rich Rod is that things are close to the vest. And actually, there was an announcement from the university there wouldn't be a spring game, no matter what you call it. And then it was shifted, reversed in a couple of days. And then yesterday he talked about the fact, I'm going to look at my notes, on April 7th, there's going to be a draft, a gold draft and a blue draft, and there's going to be a true game on the field on the 18th of April. Did that surprise you as much as it surprised me?
Well, even when – in August and even during these practices, he wants to figure out who can do it and who can't do it. And in order to make a depth chart, like, he's got to want to see some type of scrimmage. And obviously these coaches, they don't want to do this spring game because they don't want teams to see the spring game on ESPN Plus and then them come try to tamper of taking that kid or something like that, So I know from a fan perspective, like, you would kind of like to see a scrimmage, but Rich Rod's Rich Rod. He's got to keep it tight to the vest on who's who,
But just along those lines, though, he did say he didn't want the first game of the season to be the first game of the season, and he wants these guys to go after each other. So, that hopefully that's going to increase attendance because there are a lot of festivities on the 18th. But up until yesterday, I didn't hear much about a quote unquote game. There would be skill sets and schemes, et cetera, et cetera.
Just a little competition,
Yeah. So we'll see what we're going to see. But the thing that you mentioned, he said we're much better up front. He said that, just to follow up on what you said, that he said Cam hits the hole really fast, and that's really important. And so, from my perspective, and I get your take on this, when you think about the kinds of things you hope you would hear from a head coach in spring of the second year, so many of my boxes are being checked.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. Rich has kind of been there and for more than a year now. Um, you listened to even Ben Cutter's press conference yesterday, and then I listened to Nick Cray's. He was on maybe Three Guys there a couple months ago, right when they got winter workouts started, and like they kind of just mentioned more. You can feel more of the buy-in, like
Mhm.
the majority of the team has the buy-in, and that's culture right there. So, not to say like we had kids give up last year or anything, but they weren't necessarily 100% what Rich wanted. So that's something I like here because you need to have a good culture to get it going.
Yeah, exactly. He said
Hmm.
we're more athletic than we were last year.
Yes.
We're deeper
Hmm.
than we were last year. The
Right.
attitude is much better,
Hmm.
and he's seeing more what he called total engagement
Yes.
of the players. And it was it because so many players were left after Brown was let go.
Hmm.
He was putting Humpty Dumpty back on the wall, and so. Um, we're in a much different situation this year. And he talked a lot, if you could follow up on this, he talked a lot about how his freshman class, which he didn't have last year really, but he said how good it is. And of course, we got that stud Brown grabbed him from Penn State out of Pennsylvania on the offensive line. It looks to the world like he's going to start. But he said the freshman class looks awfully good.
Yeah, well, you think that these are guys that um, he wanted. He's seen, his coaches have seen, so they kind of know what they're getting. And like I said, the majority of them, like what he said yesterday, there was only like 12, and that's out of. I know the rule is 105, but there's finagling. They don't call them walk-ons; they call them like DSA players, and you can have up to like 10. So really, there's 100 players up there right now, and last year there wasn't 100 players up there at this time. So I think that's a big thing too. You know.
Question here from Leo Cole again about Ben Cutter. Do you see him stepping up a bit more from what he did last year and the year before?
I mean, he's the what they kind of joked about yesterday. He's the old guy in there, and he's the guy that gets the Big 12 conference. I've never had a problem with Ben Cutter in the box. It's always been maybe a little bit of his speed, out on the pass coverages and all that. But I think that's what Allie was able to bring in on his linebacker transfers was he brought in some speedy linebackers that can cover the field. So if you can primarily keep Cutter in the box, then I think his role will definitely step up.
Hmm. Greg, I'll kick it back to you.
I think that was one of the problems talking about defense. Our linebackers seem like Cutter got caught out there a lot of times trying to guard people, and he
Hmm.
struggled with that a little bit. But yeah, I agree with Dave. If he's in the middle, if he's the run stopper there, he's going to be fine, and his role will be
Hmm.
productive, I would think. What I also hear, a lot of defensive backs are being brought in. What's your take on the defensive secondary?
I mean, D backs is always you can never just like how we kind of said about O line. I don't think he brought in enough guys. No, there's not enough you could bring in, but like D backs because he wants such a variety of guys. You got the cornerbacks, you got the safeties, you got the nickel guys that can go, and then you got the guys that can play that are like kind of like tweener linebackers that can play tight ends, they cover tight ends, but then also be down there in the run stoppers. That's why you can never have enough D backs, and he's certainly brought in a couple guys, and it was kind of interesting how he brought in a couple of the guys. Michael Hawkins had that brother Malik Hawkins was a D back. He was like, yeah, your brother can come too, and just the same way with the Latimer running back, the top running back we kind of took away from Wisconsin. We got his brother Jameer to transfer here from Wisconsin, so Like I said, you can never have enough D-backs because there's just such a variety of type of D-backs you need. So that's definitely going to be another interesting spot. And a thing like he wanted to get bigger and longer from those positions last year, and I think he's done that as well. So.
Well, lastly, of course, not leastly, we talked about this a lot last year, is that D-backs can't cover people for 5, 6, 7 seconds back there. You got to get a rush on the quarterback. Defensive line, at times pretty good last year. What's coming back there, and what's he bringing in?
So it was real interesting. What was the Frank may know? What was the name of the coach that was here just for a few weeks and went to Georgia?
Ooh. Boy, I'm going to have to look that up. I'm not going to be able to have it on the tip of my tongue.
Well, so it was. I thought it was interesting that he had the top 5, like his position group, like had top 5 in sacks from Arkansas State. I think that's where he was at. And I thought that was a real good pickup. And then you kind of seen, like, right after he was announced, we brought in a couple edge guys.
Larry Knight is the name.
Larry Knight, yeah. He brought in that kid from Coastal, Ezekiel Campbell, and the one from Western Kentucky, the Harper Holloman. So you're definitely looking at guys that could put pressure. And then everybody obviously knows about the Oregon guy, the Toby Hastrop. And if you look at him, he's kind of like Kevin Brown. He was at Oregon for 1 year, didn't get in, obviously, because Oregon is already established. But I think people are definitely going to think about him getting in the lineup, and that's a key thing. We got to be able to get to that quarterback. We got to be able to get to him, put pressure on them. So
yeah, I think last year when we struggled, a lot of people blamed the secondary, but a lot of times it wasn't their fault, and the defensive line, like I said, at times looked really good, got pressure, and had a bunch of sacks in some games, and like Houston and that sort of thing. But a lot of times there wasn't a lot of pressure, and you just can't guard people. There's defense backs, you can't cover somebody that long. I mean, at some point they're going to get open. You've played in the backyard before. People can guard you for a little while, but after a while you can make enough moves to get open. So I think that's really key for a defensive line. But I feel strongly that, and with no other way of knowing other than knowing that Rich has had time to put this thing together and to work the kinks out, that we're going to be much improved next year all the way around.
Well, like I said, we're a year into this. Rich fully has now recruiting class from portal and his high school class. He has guys he knows and are got to be more in tune with his ways. And I tell you another thing I like. I kind of like the setup of the schedule this year. I mean, we don't even have a true road game until like the month
right.
of
yeah.
And the only time we have a back-to-back road games in the conference, we have an open week in the middle of it. So, like I said, I think the schedule really sets up for us to have a chance to have a successful season.
Darren, if you could throw up the schedule, that'd be good. And we have a question. Timothy, watching on Voice of College Football, says as he looks at the schedule, he's thinking of 8-4-9-3. And a couple of weeks ago, Greg and I had a back and forth one of the nights, and looking at the early takes by the Wags, basically saying that Houston looks awfully tough this year. Texas Tech looks awfully tough.
Yeah.
And so does Houston. And we play those at the end of the season. And so talk a bit more about that schedule as you see, and then what are you going out on a limb? What's your prediction for the season? That's a tough one, but.
Man, well, obviously you see there, you should be able to get the first two, obviously. And Coastal has a new coach, so it's a whole new system down there. So I think that's a big thing. And then obviously the first true test has got to be that UVA game. And I can't exactly remember. I know UVA lost a ton in the portal. Remember, they were the ACC champs. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even though maybe Miami probably should have been those ACC champs, but did the quarterback that was at Penn State that went out to Missouri go to UVA like Bo? I can't think of his last name, but
we'll look it up.
Yeah, go ahead. Like, can't think of his last name. But you look at the Oklahoma State game. Obviously, that's a new coach, and obviously, but that's a successful coach. You know, he was down North Texas. He's brought a bunch of those kids with him. So, but that game's at home. Like I said, we don't go away until we play the Iowa State game, and obviously, that's another new coach.
Yeah.
So that's not going to be the same Iowa State Matt Campbell Iowa State that we've had to deal with for the past, man, how many years? Like 10 plus years, you know. So now that Arizona game's probably going to be tough. They still got that little quarterback that, man, I can't think of his name, but man, he's a tough little dude. Cincinnati, didn't they lose a bunch in the portal? Didn't that quarterback
they lost the quarterback to Texas Tech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By the way, the names you were thinking of, and UVA is reloaded at quarterback. Bo Prabula is coming from Missouri, and the guy that killed us in that Pitt game with that comeback, Eli Holstein, has transferred from Pitt. He lost his starting job, so those two guys are going to battle it out, and I wonder which one we're going to see. And obviously, Holstein has the advantage because he's played against WVU before, but I'll look up, but I can't remember. Go ahead.
What's his name's played against WVU too? He was the backup to what's his name?
That's
but
right.
he only came in when they needed to run the ball.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He only played a few plays, but like I said, whoever suggested, like I think you think of 8 wins would be a good year, especially like I said with that schedule, and then see who we get in that bowl game. Obviously, Texas Tech is established. Kansas will finally have a different quarterback. Daniels has been there for 7-8 years, it seems like. So, but yeah, like I said, but like I said, I think the schedule definitely sets up for a good year for them to have a good year.
By the way, the name of that quarterback, which escaped me as well, Noah Fafita, is that quarterback. Yes. And he can kill you with his legs. That's the other thing
I think last year he got better. See, the year before when we played him, he had that one receiver that's playing for the Panthers now. He just threw to him. But now he'll work it over here and he'll work it over there, then he works it over. So you got a lot more to cover now.
Yeah. And Rich Rod yesterday was talking about our quarterbacks. He said they could all run. They all can run. And that's the other thing is that the news that we didn't talk about last week, Greg, was our quarterback transferring to Northwestern, the former WVU quarterback, Nico Marchiol, transferring to Northwestern. How he's going to figure in that lineup remains to be seen. But Rich Rod, obviously, in his offense needs running quarterbacks. You got to be able to run. And he's much happier, I think, this year than last.
Yeah. Well, I think the emergence of Scotty Fox last year, I think, he played pretty well for the most part. Really, boosted their confidence a little bit in that position because he can run the ball too. Of course, the problem with that is you risk that injury. But in today's game, you got to have quarterbacks that can move. I mean, you just don't see the drop back, so to speak, quarterback anymore. All of them are mobile and can move. I think the quarterback room, regardless of what he brings in, who starts, whatever, is going to be fine. If you have Scotty Fox there, if there's somebody better than him, then they're pretty good. I mean, it's not like, we weren't sure about Nico. We'd seen flashes, but really hadn't seen him enough to to tell. And not that he was a bad quarterback, but I don't think he lived up quite to the height that he got when he got here. But Scotty Fox, I think you can see, with his size and his arm, and then his ability to scramble, you could just see, see good things out of him. And so you have to feel like that quarterback room is in pretty good shape. And if there's somebody better than Scotty Fox, then they're going to be decent and pretty good. So I think that's encouraging from a quarterback. I'll say this about the schedule too. It's about damn time we got a break on the schedule. It's about time. I mean, every year it seems like we get screwed on that schedule some way. We're making trips. We talked about this last year. You're making trips out to Provo on a Thursday night, and you 2-3 road games in a row that are 2,000 miles away, and it just always seemed kind of unfair the way the schedule set up. So I guess maybe I think, Frank, where we talked about it so much, they finally heard us. The commissioner probably watched our show and said, you know what, those guys are right. We need to fix the schedule and give West Virginia a little bit of a break.
Yeah. Well, if you heard Calipari, he gives endless quotes in his press conferences. He had a great one the other day. He said, coaches win games, administrations win championships.
Yeah.
And you can see the shift, for example, like Indiana, getting really serious about football. And you're seeing it, Dave, at UVA. They've really, as you say, they've won the ACC. You see what's happening at Vanderbilt. You see what's happening at other places. Miami lost their way for a while. Miami of Florida, they're back. And so it does, and WVU is blessed. You can see the changes with women's basketball. Yeah. Rifle has been strong, football, et cetera, et cetera. And so, that's really true. And with UVA going out and getting those two quarterbacks, I hadn't realized that. That makes a big difference. And that is an important game for us. Win that game, and you're going to get national attention, and you then go from there into the Big 12 schedule. So that's a very important game.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of reminds you back in the old Big East days when we always had Maryland was second or third game on the schedule. If we'd beat Maryland, we'd always go, 9-2, 9-3. We'd lose Pitt and Penn State every year. But if we lost to Maryland, we'd end up 6-5, 5-6. We never had that good year. I think that's one of those types of games. I think if we win that game, you got your momentum going in the Big 12 schedule. Then I think at that point, 8-9 games is a real possibility. You lose that game, it really sets you back, and it may drop that win total by a couple. So I think it's a pivotal game too, Frank. And I definitely one we need to win, and I think that would propel us, one into a good season. Of course, you look at last year, and we lost that game to Ohio, which I don't think anybody expected. Ohio was actually pretty decent. They were a pretty good team, but it felt like the season was wrecked when that happened. But we bounced back pretty nice and did okay toward the middle and end. But yeah, I think it's pivotal. I think if we win that game, we're 3-0, and that greased up for the Big 12 schedule, and I think we'll be performing a lot better if we get that win. I think it's key.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One thing we haven't talked about, Dave, is the special teams, and Rich Rod has not talked about it, although he did make some comments yesterday about depth. But from what I can tell, their strength has been added in terms of the kickoffs. To be able to get those touchbacks, because we've been burned a lot 2 years ago, less last year, but there's going to be rotation both in punting and in place kicking, and I think it's going to. Do you see it as a work in progress, or what are your thoughts about those special, particularly the kicking side?
Well, he brought in 3 guys. So, before. he kind of talked about, this was the walk-on days. You would have so many guys in that room, and maybe you would give like a Pat McAfee one scholarship and the rest of the guys be walk-ons, and then maybe one of these guys would be like, well, okay, he can do that, and we still got Pat for these other couple things. But he brought in 3. He actually brought in a punter, and then something had some type of credit or something didn't pass, and then I think he ended up going to Arizona. But he brought in a punter from Colorado State. I think his name's Hansen.
That's right.
And I think he was like kind of on his average, he was a top punter. Of course, he's out there in the Rockies. There's not ball flies a little bit more out there. But he brought in the kid from Alabama, the Peter Notaro, and then he brought in the kid from Western Kentucky, Jake Cassidy. So I don't know which one will be the field goal kicker and which one will be the kickoff specialist. But it got better. He switched up to that kid that went to Fairmont Senior, that Nate Flyer, last year. Started doing kickoffs later in the year, and it got better. But he still, just like Rich, he thought he can get better guys in here to create competition, and we'll see what those guys are about. But it's a huge thing. Like, I know how many times I'm just like, can we just kick it to the end zone? Can we just get it to the end zone instead of letting teams have a big return against us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, it's easy at this time of year to get maybe ahead of yourself, but all the signs are pointing in a positive direction. Something else that Greg and I have talked about, how difficult it is now in the nil era to size up the opposition before the season starts. It used to be in the old days, you'd get your Street and Smiths or Athlon's book. Guys would do the research. And now, you can still spend your money on it, and I do. But the fact is, things change so much, and there's so many new people there that it's a real crapshoot. And it shows in terms of the predictions that guys make who are in the business. Arizona State, for example, being picked toward the bottom 2 years ago, and then ending up winning the Big 12. It becomes a lot more difficult. You can say, "Oh, follow the money," and if you do that, there's only one team that's going to be on top, and that's Texas Tech in football, and almost in all other sports too, because they really are talking about administrations win championships. They're putting money behind their athletes. But the fact of the matter is it's tough enough to be able to size up your own team, but these other teams, it's extremely, extremely difficult. And as we talked earlier, you're seeing a lot more intra-conference horse trading than you used to see. Like, for example, with the Cincinnati quarterback going to Texas Tech. And so the bottom line is it's tough, but everything you said makes a lot of sense. I know to me, and I trust to Greg too.
Yeah, the interesting, kind of funny, you mentioned Calipari, and obviously administration is a big thing on money. Did you see like what they were? He was talking about High Point. They were talking about High Point at that time. Did you see what High Point did to get their students out to the game?
Yeah, Greg was telling me.
Students out there, yeah, that's
down at the in the conference tournament. As one of the kids told me, their bus ticket, their food, their hotel was paid for if they wanted to go.
Yeah,
they bust like 10 buses in full of kids, full students from High Point, and then they flew them to the NCAA game.
Why didn't I apply to go there? Why didn't I apply to go there?
Really, somebody called them. I forget what the term was they used, but basically making reference to their money. And
if I would have applied there, I wouldn't imagine what my parents would have said on tuition. I'll tell you that.
I told Frank this before. their NIL, their value was I think they had 4 million in NIL this year, but the school itself, their foundations, all those things that they have, went from 5 million to 42 million in like 3 years, and the president is very well connected to the business world and very wealthy himself, I think, is what they said. So they're able to spend that money, and that makes a difference. And I mean, you can see, they had transfers from UConn, they had transfers from Arizona. They had players on their team. And, we laughed. My son told me when they got the matchup against Wisconsin, he said, they'll beat Wisconsin, Dad. He said, Wisconsin can't match up with them. And then he said, they're going to give Arkansas a run too. And they did. And so they talk about these upsets. I'm not so sure that these things are, these games are always upsets when you look at the, when you look at the NIL, they got plenty of money there. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. They really do. Yeah, it's amazing. Most of us, a lot of us don't even know where High Point is. But for those people who are familiar, know that, that's a good school. Tubby Smith is an alum, played for High Point, went on to do have a great career as a coach and so on. Dave, one of the things I was thinking about in terms of hopes for this team, let me run by you what I've called my big five. And I'm thinking about keeping my notes here when Greg and I do the post-game shows to see if the Mountaineers come through in any one game or all their games. One is, and I think we're already going to see it. We see it already. Much better in terms of fundamentals, being really good in the fundamentals. Second, having really good schemes. That was a frustration last year. Sometimes you wondered, why are we, and part of it was that you have to go with what you have. But now with better talent, better schemes, and then keep the fumbles down to a minimum, keep the interceptions down to a minimum. That's the third thing, the turnovers. And then fourth, number of long plays, keep those to a minimum. I mean, it was great against Arizona State in the second half when we had two really long plays that we had two long pass plays, but I'm talking about keeping the other team from long plays. That killed us against KU, for example. And then fourth, consistency in special teams. Shank punts, making sure that we kick the ball into the end zone, high percentage conversion on field goals, kicking for average, high net average. Those are my five. Fundamentals, schemes, mistakes to a minimum, keep long plays to a minimum, and strong special teams play. Any one of those or others come to mind?
I would add to that injuries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You can't.
That's me on the good side of luck right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because last year we were just decimated. I really think too that weighed so heavy on us last year. I think people lose sight of that. We had so many injuries. I mean, our whole backfield was injured. Quarterbacks were injured. Linemen were injured. I mean, we had injuries across the board. That, again, may have something to do, Dave, with, I don't get your thoughts on this early training. The fact that they're in the weight room, they're in they're in conditioning, that kind of thing right now, whereas last year they weren't. So you have to wonder if that didn't contribute a lot to these injuries. And we were just decimated by that. And I think we would have been a lot better if we hadn't had all those injuries. Of course, anybody could say that, but I think we had more than our fair share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously, well, this all goes back to the offensive line. Like that you've heard, they're bigger, they're stronger right now. My camera is awful right now, but like that did not help the quarterbacks, and that didn't help the running backs. Like, you think about those two rooms, and they were so decimated in injuries. And a lot of it had to be offensive line play, and a little bit of that wasn't – they weren't the bigger ones. They weren't the stronger ones. So I think having all these guys in there finally for a full winter, a full year is going to help that. And that's even saying – like a running back room right now where Cam Cook is the old man in the group and everybody else is freshmen in that room. it's just going to be helpful that the offensive line is going to be better.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. And like you said, a lot of it was wrong side of luck, but a lot of it was that lack of blocking, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think everything Frank said is correct. All those things we talk about before games. Turnovers obviously are always going to be a key, and for us, the special teams are important. For everybody, they're important, but we struggled some there, and I just think our offensive line play has to be good, and no matter what else we do, well, we got to have a good offensive line and good offensive line play to be able to run and pass the ball. So that's all I would add to Frank's list.
Yeah, well, a lot of anticipation. This gets really, really serious because you've got to have progress in year two. A lot of people are saying that it's going to be year three that really is the proof of the pudding, but you gotta make progress in year two. And I'm glad Dave said what he said because, and you amplified it, Greg. That schedule. It's a lot different when you're opening up against Penn State, and we're not.
Yeah.
So, and that's where the administration comes. A lot of people, at least some people I read on Facebook, were really upset when we lost the home and home with Alabama. But when you look at it from a longer perspective, having to play a SEC power early in the season when you got to go into the Big 12 gauntlet is awfully tough. And there's enough jazz that will surround the UVA WVU game. That's your marquee non-conference. And that's no slight of the other two teams, but Dave's absolutely on target. When you have a new coach with a new set of schemes and you got to go on the road the first game, it's a long shot to do anything other than just hang in there. So getting Coastal's tough, and getting Coastal under those circumstances, new coach, new schemes, first game at home is a blessing because we all know how difficult they're tough. They're like App State. You definitely don't want to play them there. So, but this has been great, Dave, as always, worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you guys having me on it. I can't remember the last time I was on the show. Always enjoy it.
Probably last fall. So
probably before basketball because I don't get to do a lot of stuff during basketball season. So
we'll have to do better. Dave, appreciate you. Yeah, take some time, man. Enjoy it.
Yep.
We'll get you back soon.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, Dave Gorby, everybody, and Frank, I'm amazed at the knowledge and knowing these people, and I can't keep them straight. I can't remember my own name, much less 15 other people's names that I've never met. And he does a great job of telling us about these guys and where they play and where they're from and that sort of thing. So it's always enlightening. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, intelligent analysis from Dave, and the same thing with Mark Parsons that we're going to have on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Same thing, same approach, very analytic. They stay up to date.
Yep.
Don't get emotional about things. Just do a great job of laying it out. And, and then when there are issues, being truthful about the issues. And that's what you need to hear rather than, folks who are just either go too far one way or too far another. They're steady. And that's why we love having them back on the show.
Yep. Does a great job. That was very enlightening, enjoyable. So looking forward to having him back. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we said we're going to talk a bit about baseball. We've got a very unusual situation coming up that I didn't realize until I was reading an article. The Mountaineers again beat Marshall last night at Marshall, big crowd, 3-1, one hitter. I think in the seventh inning. I think the WVU had used four pitchers last night. Anyway, great end of the game with a double play. They had to have a replay, but Marshall looked like there might be a rally. Had a man on first, on a walk, and then that game ended with one out with a double play. But this weekend, it's interesting. They go to Arizona State, and they play Arizona State Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't know if those games, two of the games, I don't think are going to be on ESPN. Let me see if I can find it. The one game that is going to be on network television, if I can find it here, is going to be on, I think, on ESPN2. I can't find it on Sunday, and I think it's going to be Sunday at 8 o'clock. Here it is. It's going to be on ESPN2 Sunday, 8 p.m. because it's on the West Coast. Arizona State against WVU. Arizona State's having a pretty good year, better than Arizona. But that's the thing I want to get to, is that since they're going to be out there to play 3 games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday against Arizona State, they're going to play Arizona out there on Tuesday night. But it's going to be a non-conference game because the Big Eight, when you play in conference, they want a 3-game series. So there's only going to be one game. It's not going to count in the conference standing. It's going to be considered a midweek game Tuesday against the University of Arizona. And then they come back. And what's interesting when they come back is that they're going to be playing UCF. Now, UCF and West Virginia are tied for the baseball lead in the Big 12. And what's interesting is that UCF is playing this weekend at home against Arizona. So you're gonna see some horse trading here. I think we're gonna know much more about where WVU is likely to end up in the regular season in baseball after not this weekend, but next weekend against UCF when they play head to head, because they're both 5-1. But it's an exciting team, as you know, Greg.
Yep, sure is, and it makes sense to play that game out there. You get a game in. The weather's going to be good, so very small chance it gets postponed, so they get 3 in and then play the extra one before they come back. Such a long trip, so pretty good scheduling there. But yeah, UCF, that series will be pivotal. You want to win your home series, and so far we've been able to win our series, but. Yeah, this team's exciting. They've shown both flashes of great hitting and flashes of great pitching, and they get it all together at one time. You won't see many 3-1 scores because they do put up some runs normally. I think sometimes they almost like with Marshall last night, like they put added pressure on themselves when they, when the game's tight. They really. Seem like they put added pressure on themselves as far as hitting the ball goes. When they just start relaxing and playing, they hit it all over the place. So, but yeah, good, exciting team to watch, good defensive team. And like I said, if the pitching can keep coming around like it did last night, this team be hard to beat. And it should go a long way in this Big 12.
Absolutely. And it's so great if you can afford it. And it is, it's not a minor money. And you and I have talked about, you just have to be very careful about your sports dollar and how you spend it. But ESPN Plus makes it possible to see games that we otherwise would not see. And they do a phenomenal job of baseball, to the point that you say to yourself, how can they possibly do all these games at network quality with replays, et cetera, et cetera? It's, they really have it down. And what's great too is if you're a fan of a mid-major or lower mid-major, you get to see a lot of your teams on ESPN Plus that never really, or very rarely are on ESPN or Fox. And so that, to me, it's one of the few things. It's the only added sports package I have because I use it so much. But he's done a great job, and I like what an analyst said the other day, is how WVU is really mining D2 baseball and looking for diamonds, not diamonds in the rough, but guys that they believe have the capability to make that move up to the high major, and they've done that. And they're doing a great job at the high school level. This David Perez, which is a freshman from New York, has turned into their closer. Not a big guy, but he just has great control and nibbles the edges. Just a great arsenal of pitchers. So I think we both think this WVU team is going to go far this year.
Yep, yep, they look good. They, and you don't want to say they look better than last year's team, but as you watch them, you just kind of get the same feel as you had with last year's team, and that is they're never out of a game. You always feel like they're going to win, so that is exciting. And you mentioned ESPN Plus covered them; they do a great job of covering those games, and I'm thankful for it, obviously, because my son coaches at Winthrop, which is considered a low major, and I get to watch all their games because they're on ESPN Plus, and then the baseball games and of course, I also watch Youngstown State and Utah State because of friendships, but it allows me to watch all those games too. So, I have that as well, and it's the only one I have, and I don't need anything else other than that. But hats off to them for that. Don't give them too much credit for anything, but I will say they do a great job covering these games, and it is pretty amazing when you look at the number of games that they do on any given night. I mean, maybe 15, 20 games,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all covered well, and so that's a good thing. But I'm looking forward to this baseball team. I think I think they've got a lot of talent. They hit the ball well. Their defense is pretty solid. Their pitching's coming around. If that pitching keeps improving, and they keep hitting like they've been hitting, they're going to be a hard team to handle. So it'd be going to be fun to watch, like all the other sports are right now.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. Well, we've got another good one coming up next week, Greg,
Yep.
as you know, and Darren will get that. There is a name that a lot of people may not remember or know from WVU football. Played 2 years. Brad Bethaney, a great find by Mark Parsons. He's there. His photo, WVU photos on the right. He was a DB, but he has had a fabulous high school coaching career, and he's one of these. Rick Trickett kind of guys, eat stones for breakfast, basically raises these kids up and they win champions. There he's with one of his championship trophies. And what's interesting is that sometimes I end up I think I follow people or people follow me, but Kathy Fear, my wife, taught in Preston County, Kingwood, and that's where Brad's from. And I'm down in Fort Myers area, Florida, as we speak, and he coached down here locally in Florida. So,
Okay.
going to talk with Brad about who's following whom here. Probably I'm following him, but it'll be interesting to talk with him about a number of things in WVU sports, but also what he's seeing at the high school level in terms of the linkage to what's going on at the college level, because he's put a whole bunch of folks at the college level.
It'll be interesting. Be good talk. I remember when he played. Frank's pretty bad when it's then and now, and I remember all these guys playing. So that's probably not a good thing. Yeah. But it'll be a fun interview, and talk to him about the coaching, how it's changed over the last few years, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of good insights. That'll be a lot of fun. Frank, if there's nothing else, I want to wish Mickey a speedy recovery. And thanks again to Mark Parsons for his work and diligence in getting guests for the show. Thanks to Dave Gorby, taking some time out of his schedule to join us tonight. Very enlightening, very entertaining, and informative. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate all of you for tuning in to the Mountaineer Locker Room then and now here on the New River Network and the Voice of College Football. For Frank Fear, I'm Greg Christ. We will see you next Wednesday night. Have a great night, everybody.